Good morning from beautiful Bali. I'm here at the World Midwives Conference where I'm joined by the lovely Dr. Zoe Bradfield from Australia, and join us for another important midwifery conversation. Good morning, Zoe. It's so nice to finally meet you in person. We've been in contact online for a long time, right? And it's so nice to finally meet you here at ICM.
Oh, I do too, Maeve. It's lovely to finally meet you in person.
So can you just give me a brief introduction? Who are you? What do you do? Where do you work?
Sure. So my name is Zoe Bradfield. I am a Senior Midwifery Research Fellow and I have a joint appointment between Curtin University in Perth in Western Australia and the Women and Newborn Health Service, which is the state's tertiary maternity service in Perth, Western Australia. So those are my day jobs. But I'm also the Vice President of the Australian College of Midwives.
Excellent. So do you want to just give us a brief run through your career in midwifery to date? How did you actually get to be in this really senior position? Because for me, I think if you were a student midwife watching right now, you think, oh yeah, she's really senior up there, but she was never like me. So give us a snapshot to your journey in midwifery.
I think when I was in school, I never really knew what I wanted to do when I left school. So my mum came up with the idea that I should be a nurse, and I was, generally obedient. So I went and did a nursing degree, and it was okay. I was an okay nurse. I was probably even technically proficient and did all my clinical tasks, but it certainly never made me come alive. We had a tree change, moved out to the country, and I was doing some work in the country for a while, and had an opportunity to work with midwives there in the hospital, and then had an opportunity to do midwifery education. And I remember something about those fierce women that I thought, I want to be like that. I'm not sure what it is about them. So I went and did my midwifery education when I was living in the country. So worked doing rural midwifery for many years, and worked with First Nations women, doing sexual and reproductive health as well. So that was really fantastic. And then moved back to the city, did my masters. Then got involved in a bit of teaching, and then as these things happen, I'd go and do my PhD. And I think honestly it's involvement with a professional organisation. So involvement with the Australian College of Midwives has really given me an opportunity to serve the profession and to give back to what has been given to me. And in doing that, I think you develop the leadership skills as you go along, and the longer that you spend in it. So I certainly didn't, materialise into this overnight. It has been a long road of just being committed and dedicated to the work of midwifery, which is not hard. That's a very easy thing to do for me. But then also to be involved in supporting and serving the profession through the peak bodies, and then being involved in leadership through that. So that would be my advice for young midwives who are looking for a way to advance their midwifery leadership, is to be involved with organisations that are involved in strengthening the profession. And those opportunities come.
That's brilliant. So would you advise anyone who's offered an opportunity to just grab it, whether they think they're there or not? Yeah. That's kind of the vibe, isn't it?
I've never been a person with a 5-year plan. I've never understood them. I've sat in countless kind of strategy talks and days about, what's your 5-year plan on this, that and the other. And I remember looking at them just thinking, I just can't even see that far ahead. Yeah. I just really can't. I thought there must be something wrong with me that I can't. But I've never really been able to do that. But what I have done is I've worked hard and I say yes to opportunities. And that has been my philosophy that's got me probably to this point. I'm probably now at a stage in my career where I can see a 5-year plan and what might be the value of that. But what's got me to this point is really just single steps in the same direction, working hard and saying yes to opportunities.
Yeah. And so I realised how I know you, and that is because I recently authored the Care in the First Stage of Labour chapter for Maeve's Midwifery, which is our core textbook. And when I started authoring that chapter, the very first thing that I did is I went to look for a definition of what does being woman-centred mean, because I decided I wanted to have a woman-centred approach to care in the first stage of labour. And actually labour is on a continuum, and why are we talking about the first stage of labour, the second stage of labour, the third stage of labour? Because labour is on a continuum. What does that mean? So I discovered the work of Dr. Zoe Bradfield. So if you're reading the new version, which will be published very soon, it will be Bradfield et al. All over the place. So please, Zoe, can you please tell us what does to be with women mean, and what does woman-centred care mean?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. I mean, obviously as midwives we hear about being with women all the time, and really what led me to doing my research and my PhD research originally, I wanted to look at, can we use simulation to teach being with women, because there are such variable experiences within the hospital environment that we can't control. And so for us to be able to emulate it, we need to be able to see it. And if we're not reliably seeing it in the clinical environment, can we simulate it in a way that shows students? So it actually was in that work and preparing to do what was initially intended to be a PhD around simulation that I had to go back and look, well, actually, what does it mean? Outside of Zoe's definition of what it means to be with woman, surely we've heard so much about this over the decades about how important it is. Nikki Leib's work and Pat Brody and many of the other leaders that have published on this earlier about being with woman, Leslie and all of our other doyens of midwifery. But I couldn't find a definition. I couldn't certainly find any evidence where we'd asked midwives or taken some kind of sense of what it means to be with woman in a way that would enable us to reproduce it. If being with woman is so important and so central to our profession, then how would I know if I'm doing it? What does it look like? What does it not look like? What does it behave like? What does it not behave like? Does it look different in different settings or in different models of care? So really that was the crux of my PhD. It was a phenomenological study where we looked at the phenomenon of being with woman, from the perspective of midwives during labour and birth, and we looked at it from the context of lots of different models. And I guess I'm pleased to say, in the 2-minute nutshell synopsis, is that yes, it doesn't really matter where you're working or what you're doing, you can be with woman. And yes, it will look different based on maybe the model of care that you work in. If you know the woman and you have a strong and constant relationship with her through the continuity models, it will look different. If I'm in a private obstetric model and I'm a midwife providing care there, can I still be with a woman? Yes, I absolutely can, but it will look different. And it is probably attenuated by the relationship between the woman and her private obstetrician. What about in the fragmented model, the standard kind of public model that's available in many OECD nations? Can I be with women there? Yes, absolutely. And it's that adaptive expertise that really came out in that narrative, this kind of shape-shifting and transmogrification that we do as midwives, where we meet this random woman and we have to all of a sudden get on the same page as her, understand what her priorities are, understand what's important to her, and we have to turn ourselves into whatever that woman needs us to be. So we are adaptive experts, and we do that day in, day out, and I think that's it's a really unique characteristic and property of midwives. And so then being with women helps us to be woman-centred, and so the outcomes from my research were really a whole raft of descriptions around what it means to be woman-centred, and they include a whole list of things, and I'll probably leave some off now, but we're looking at therapeutic presence, so that concept of being with but not doing anything.
Yes.
That is, being with.
Yes.
Creating a space for the woman and ensuring that there is space for her, during that birthing environment. That involves both the physical space and setting up the environment, but also the psycho-emotional space and safety and security and the like. So, a whole raft of attributes that can actually be now, in evidence, attributed to being woman-centred.
That is fantastic. And this notion of watchful attendance, it's in a paper by Anke de Jong et al. This notion of just being with and sitting with. We used to say sitting knitting. We'd sit there knitting, doing nothing, and actually we're not doing nothing. We are using our midwifery skills, we're using our intuition, we're using our knowledge, this innate knowledge that we have as midwives to actually just understand what is going on with this woman and recognise deviations from the normal when they happen, and referring and working with other clinicians when we need to. But what I loved about your research, it was actually so relevant and usable. So I actually used your research as a framework for my chapter in the way that you use your themes. So I wanted you to know that, because as a researcher, you often write these papers and think, is anyone going to even read this? Like, what, it's just going out into the ether, you never know what's done with that paper. So I wanted you to know that I used your research and the themes that you used for woman-centred care. I framed the care in the first stage of labour around woman-centred care for midwives. So it's good, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And look, I'm a clinician myself, and as a practice-based professional, I was really conflicted doing this particular, very philosophical PhD, which, PhDs arguably should be philosophical, shouldn't they, thinking. But I was really driven by this mandate to have a tangible deliverable from what is effectively philosophical thinking. So thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, it is. It's like, I just thought it was brilliant, a brilliant example. So I'm interested to hear that you started off looking at simulation, because me and Gina use a lot of simulation in our education.
I noticed you two on Twitter looking.
We do. We have a Lucina and we have a Noelle, so we've got very high-tech simulation. But me and Gina actually thrive off the low fidelity, and we do a lot of role play. We actually act a lot. We're very interested. We've ordered a Mama Berthie. Have you seen Mama Berthie? Yeah. Do you use them?
We haven't. We've got a Lucina as well.
Oh, I'm really excited about Mama Berthie, and there's one on demonstration here in the World Midwives today, so I might go and check that out later. Okay, so that's been really, really fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to finish off now by asking you your final thoughts on this conference. We've attended the conference over the last number of days, and we've seen many plenary sessions, inspiring midwifery leadership speakers. So how would you like to leave this interview today?
I think for me, I've been in a privileged position where I've been attending council before this Congress as well. So I've seen, I guess, had an insight into the inner workings of what sets up the ICM and how it maintains its strength and grows from strength to strength. So my understanding of the conference comes from that understanding of just how strong the ICM itself is. And it's exemplified in the wonderful conference that's been put on for us today. Look, I think, there's that real celebration, isn't there, whenever midwives come together about just how awesome we are.
Yeah.
Undeniable, and that's lovely. But I think, probably now for me to reflect on what is, we're certainly seeing some activity around midwives and recognition and profile of midwives in ways that we've not seen before in our country where I am in Australia. But I see this collective wisdom and also this collective movement where the profile and importance of midwifery globally is really beginning to gain momentum. And this kind of intersectoral work where midwives are being invited into humanitarian spaces and into all of the other places where wherever decisions about any humans are made, midwives belong at that table. Because we are involved at a fundamental level in supporting women who are bringing forward the next generation of humans. So it's really important that midwives play a role in those decision makings, and it's really encouraging to see that that's happening more and more at a global level.
Fantastic. So midwives, take your seat at the table. Alhamdulillah. Excellent. Thank you, Zoe. It's been lovely to meet you. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Maeve.
Bye.